Hey everyone, you know that moment when you discover something you've believed your whole life is no longer true? You know, like finding out that Pluto's been demoted, or that carbs aren't actually evil, or that your school's permanent timetable has already changed twice this week. Yeah, that. I've been reading Samuel Arbesman's book, The Half-Life of Facts, and it's fascinating. It's slightly terrifying, because schools are basically factories of facts, and leadership, well, it's often built on illusion and we know stuff. You know, his main idea is that facts aren't forever. They have a half-life, just like radioactive material. What we know decays over time. Truths expire. Knowledge evolves. He outlines 7 kinds of facts, and as I read them, I couldn't help but think, this is leadership in a nutshell. First of all, he talks about hard facts, which are the bones of knowledge. These are the solid ones, you know, gravity exists, water's wet, that damn photocopier will jam during your most stressful day, probably on newsletter day. And in leadership, hard facts are things like people matter, relationships come first, and coffee helps. They form the bones of our professional lives. But even bones, well, they shift over time, don't they? And if we don't check that they're still solid, we actually risk building tomorrow's practice on yesterday's fossils. So as a leader, we can ask these sort of questions. What parts of our school practice are treated as unshakable truths? And when was the last time we checked if these still hold up? Which of your givens might actually be assumptions? And if a new leader walked in tomorrow, what would they question first? The second type of facts he talks about are soft facts, the shapeshifters. These are the it depends kinds of truths. The best way to motivate a team? Well, it depends on the team. The right way to handle behaviour? Well, it depends on the kid, the day, even the phase of the moon. So soft facts remind us that there's no universal manual for leading people. Good leaders flex, adapt, and occasionally admit, yeah, well, I might be wrong and maybe I got it wrong. So as a leader, you can ask these sorts of questions. Where do we allow flexibility in how learning or leadership should look? And where do you resist it? What happens when your context changes but your methods don't? How might you lead with principle but not prescription? The third types of facts he talks about are social facts, the ones that we all agree to believe. Uniforms, bell times, that sacred ritual of meetings with minutes. Social facts are the things we all do because, well, everyone else does. Compassionate leaders know when to gently ask, is this still serving us? Without burning the whole system down. So as a leader, you can ask these sorts of questions. Which traditions do we follow because they still serve us, and which because we're actually scared to stop? And what are the unwritten rules that run your staff room? Whose comfort does a "we've always done it this way" really protect? His fourth is scientific facts, the provisional truths. These are true until proven otherwise. They evolve with new evidence. You know, once upon a time, learning styles were gospel. Now they're just a cautionary tale. Scientific facts keep us humble. They whisper, you don't know everything, and that's okay. So as a leader, you can ask these sorts of questions. When was the last time that you changed your mind because the evidence changed? And how do you stay open to new research without becoming trend-driven? And what's one's best practice that might quietly be past its use-by date? Then he goes on to talk about statistical facts, the shifting sands. You know, numbers feel reliable, but they're slippery little things. Attendance, engagement, achievement, all essential, all open to interpretation. Leaders need to look beyond the data dashboard to the story underneath. Numbers can describe, but they can't care, and you can. So as a leader, you can ask these sorts of questions. If the data tells one story, but your gut tells another, which do you trust first, and why? And are your metrics measuring what matters most? Or how can you use numbers to start conversations, not close them down? Samuel Arbesman then talks about mesofacts. These are the slow changes. They're the quiet evolutions that sneak up on you. A curriculum rewrite, a new generation of teachers, a culture shift that's been building for years. Mesofacts remind us that change doesn't always roar. Sometimes it creeps. By the time you notice it, the ground's already moved. So as a leader, you can ask these sorts of questions. What's been evolving under your nose so gradually that you've even stopped noticing? How have student needs, community expectations, or staff mindsets changed over the past 5 years? And if you were starting fresh today, what would you do differently? Next, he talks about half-life facts. These are the expiring truths. These are the truths with a built-in countdown timer. They don't crash dramatically, they just kind of fade. They're the habits and assumptions that used to serve you well, but now just weigh you down. Every leader has a few of these gathering dust. The trick is recognizing them before they start to stink. So, as a leader, you can ask these sorts of questions. Which of your leadership beliefs has quietly reached its half-life? What's something you used to be sure of that now just feels a little outdated? And how do you make space for new thinking without discarding the wisdom that got you here in the first place? So what does this all mean for leadership? Well, it means a little bit of humility, actually. It means holding what we know a little bit more lightly. It means being the sort of leader who can say, yeah, that used to be true, but maybe it isn't anymore. I sometimes imagine my own leadership truths with little expiry dates stamped on them. Controlling everything? Expired. Trust your team? Yeah, still good. Don't dance in assemblies? Yeah, pending review. The point is facts fade, systems shift, and certainty has a shorter shelf life than we'd like to admit. But curiosity, compassion, and the willingness to update yourself, well, those things never actually go out of date. So as you head into this term, maybe ask yourself, which of your leadership facts are still serving you? Which ones are starting to expire? And which ones need to be quietly, thanked and retired? Because the best leaders aren't the ones who know it all. No, instead they're the ones still learning and laughing, even as the facts change around them.